In this episode of the Coaching Circle, we're going to be talking about why visibility is important in business. And this is really one of my favorite topics. So I'm super excited for this. And I know my very special guest today is going to drop some absolute gold. So hold on to your earphones. Jemimah Ashleigh is an award-winning entrepreneur and best-selling author, and she's a keynote speaker. She had a 13-year career in law enforcement and then left the Australian Federal Police and went on to start multiple six-figure businesses. She's released a best-selling book. She's won multiple awards, and she's even been named as Australia's top 10 entrepreneur in 2022. And not only that, Jemimah's spoken across stages across the globe with some really big names like Gary Vee and interviewed absolute legends like Tim Ferris from the 4-Hour Workweek. And there's so much more that I can't give credit to in this short introduction. But let me tell you, I'm very excited to have Jemimah here. So welcome, Jemimah Ashleigh.
Hey, Tony. Thanks for having me. So excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm, we've obviously met through BX Business Networking, and we've had some interesting times that has helped form that relationship a little bit closer over the last few months.
Haven't we?
And, I think one of the beautiful things is when you go through some challenges with people, you work out who's on your team and you get to know each other. And it's been a real pleasure getting to know you over the last few months. And I'm really excited about what it is that you do and what you can share today. So I would love, just to start, Jemimah, with if you could just tell us a bit about, what led you to become, the business coach and founder of the Visibility Lab, and why is it important to you about what it is you do?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for having me. So excited. We've certainly faced our own little kind of trials and tribulations. People should take us out for a few drinks and geez, we have some stories. Visibility for me was it's so split, right? Because I had this really well-known career in law enforcement. I just spent 13 years with like really high, like top secret security clearances and everything that goes along with that. And if anyone's dealt with those, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Where you can't be seen and can't be heard. Now I'm like everywhere. So it's this real polar opposite kind of job where I was like, oh yeah, I want to get featured in Qantas magazine. Thanks, that'd be great. What ends up happening is I have this job that was just super secret, and I got really burnt out. I got really tired because like in law enforcement, no one's having a good day. It's all very miserable. No one's loving their life. Everyone's feeling exhausted all the time. No one's stolen puppies, right? I was like in human trafficking and people smuggling and those really high stress situations.
A lot of heavy stuff.
Really heavy. And I was like, I just don't want to do this anymore. My soul felt really tired. And it started all very by chance. This whole thing was really by chance. And it was for what I refer to as kind of following the bunny a little bit. And the first thing was, I'm gonna start a jewelry business, which sounds so intuitively wrong. I started a business where I made jewelry, and I made fashion jewelry, and I loved it. I love product businesses, but I loved the creative part. What I liked more was learning to market. And intuitively, I very much knew the step-by-step process. And I will credit law enforcement because you have to do that and then that to do this, to do that. So I learned how to do structure. I learned how to do systems really well. And I just intuitively knew. So very early on in this process, I threw myself into everything. I am nothing if not a nerd. And I learned every single thing under the sun. And with that, man, I could then help other people. So people would say like, I don't know if I should create like a website or have a Facebook page. I'm like, well, you need to really do both, but let me explain in detail why, and could create arguments for each case. So I was sort of coaching before I knew even really what that was. I started a business podcast because I thought that was going to be a really good way of kind of sharing what I was learning. And the real kicker for me was that I learned in 2018 that 97% of female-led startups fail in the first 5 years. And that became the absolute kick for me. I was like, we aren't failing because we aren't great at what we do. We fail because no one knows who we are. And I was like, how do we change that? And that became my core mission of getting women particularly visible, owning their shit, owning how great they are, owning their own voice, and then using the skills that I had learned by building businesses, by starting podcasts, by writing books, and being like, I can teach you how to do this, because if I can, you can. And nothing special about me. I can, if I can, she can.
Yeah.
Let's help.
Yeah.
And that's where this whole thing came from.
I love that so much, Jemimah, because, I work with women, predominantly women as well in the coaching space. And I know the three big problems that they have is fear of being visible, money blocks and lack of confidence in their skills, right? And so this is something that's quite common, especially through that women, coaching kind of space. So the visibility, I think, is one thing, right? It's like, okay, so you've got to show up, but what do you feel like are some of the biggest challenges that you come across people have when it comes to being visible? I mean, this is what you need to do, but what about from the personal aspect?
So the first thing we say is get very, very clear on a personal brand. Who are you? And more importantly, what do you want to be known for? What problem do you solve? Who do you solve that problem for? And then amplify and buckle down on that, right? But who are you in the whole scheme of this thing? People have, and it is a universal problem, but women are very I hear this a lot more from my female clients than my male clients, because I do work with men, but they have to like women. That's kind of one of the key things with that, is that do you want to be known for this? Is this something that you want your name associated with? Because when we're starting this process, very easily we're like, I do my business, that's what I do. No, you need to build a personal brand along with that.
Yeah, I think that's really important, Jemimah, because, I know for me, when I started my business, I could never come up with a business name because I was like, the business might change, but I want people to know who Tony Everard is and what she stands for and what that's about. So if you see that name, you're going to know what's around that. Yeah.
And so you think of this in the sense of like, Tony Robbins has done a great name of leveraging off him, but he has Unstoppable Conference. He has women leadership. He has, he is who he is, and he has the businesses on the side. I have now had 4 businesses. And I've sold 2 of them, and 2 of them I'm still working in, and I love it. But also, like, Jemimah Ashleigh can trade on her name. You invited Jemimah Ashleigh to speak on this podcast, not the Visibility Lab. And you did that because you knew who I was. And I've been very clear about what problem I solve, where I'm going with this, what this is going to look like. And all of this stuff becomes super important when you're building visibility, and more importantly, just getting your name out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the common things that I see with like the clients that I work with is often that they will have, the website, or they will have the Facebook page or whatever, and there's a lovely logo, but you're like, I've got no idea whose business this is. Yeah.
And it's an extreme detriment to them in the bottom line. And it's like, I'm going to get judged for what I'm doing. You're going to get judged either way. Like, people are going to like you or they're not going to like you. A part of this is you have to stop caring what other people think a little bit. And that can take some time. But what if we got really clear about who you were? So one of the things I do with my clients is the first thing I get them to do is write down 10 things that you want to be known for. What hills are you willing to die on? And then focus only on that. Because if you're trying to do media, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but if you're trying to do media and you're trying to get, it's 24-hour media cycle, you can get TV interviews tomorrow. I can book anyone that's listening to this right now 4 interviews tomorrow. That's easy to do. But is it about stuff that you want to be known for?
Yeah. That's really important, isn't it? What do you want to be known for? Yeah,
very easy. I'm loving watching Tony's face right now. She's like, that's a really good question. Like, what hills are you willing to die on? For me, it's women's rights. I mean, like, let's go about that. But it meant that sometimes I get phone calls about like women's reproductive health. I'm like, this isn't for me, but let me give you someone that can talk about it. Women's rights, yes. Women's reproductive health rights, not mine, but let me give you someone that can speak about that. Me talking about visibility and me talking about why you should have social media, absolutely part of my wheelhouse. Just as much as, and I can also be known as that. I can also be known as a fierce feminist who loves pink, and we'll definitely go to the Taylor Swift concert when she's here, versus the person who also runs a networking group and loves media and PR. You can be more than one thing, but get clear about who that person is as a whole person, as a personal brand.
Yeah, I love that. Really powerful. So, I would love to, I'm sure you've got some tips that you want to share with us, or I'm hoping you've got some tips, because I know that you're full of information. So it would be really great if you can. But I would love to know, like, for yourself, Jemimah, like this whole business thing, like you said, you've done, 4 6-figure businesses and all those kinds of things, and bought and sold and kept going. And what do you think for you has been some of the biggest challenges in having your own business and growing your own businesses?
Probably the biggest challenge, which is also the greatest opportunity, I guess, was realizing very early on that the law enforcement crowd that I had and the friends around me were not the people I needed around me moving forward.
Mm,
So there was a really simple thing that happened when I quit my job, and it was a very high paying 6-figure salary, and I was loved my job. I was very powerful at what I did and I loved it. And I was suddenly able to jewelry business. And
mhm.
I remember getting invited to a friend's birthday party. And it was a very like, this is what we do. This is who my friends were. And I understood that. And here was the day. We're going to go out in the boat. We're going to go and do this. We're going to go out for drinks. We're going to go and do that. Everyone's going to put money in. It was going to be about a $500 or $600 day. That I probably would have been like, not really batted an eyelid on, because before there was cash coming in, there was a guarantee. And suddenly I have not that guarantee anymore. And I had to look at it and was like, no, I can't afford this. Actually, this is not where my time is best spent. I had fallen into the trap of drinking a lot with a lot of my law enforcement friends and my friends in that circle. That wasn't
Mm,
helpful because I
mm.
don't handle hangovers very well, and I would lose the next day. Here's the thing: when you're working for yourself, that's a whole 8 to 10 hours where you could be doing something that's practical and building a business.
Yeah.
So I had to start making some choices. So the first thing for me was I had the wrong people around me, and I needed a high level network around me ASAP. That
Yeah.
was the absolute thing, that absolutely biggest issue I had, because once I was no longer the smartest person in the room, my life became much better.
Yeah, I think that is so important because, one of the things that I do with, when I teach people NLP and those kinds of things is that I've got a
Mm-hmm.
community, because it's like, if you're moving into a space where you're thinking differently, you're talking differently, you're growing a business,
Mm-hmm.
the people that you've hung out with before aren't likely going to support that. Not that they're necessarily going to sabotage it, but they just won't get it necessarily. And it's really important to have the people around you, and I think both from peers, but also people who inspire you. Like one of the things I've always said is I'll pay for proximity, right, to get as close as I can to the people who
Mm-hmm.
make what I want reality. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not a diss to those people at all. And I think this kind of leads into the other lesson that I had around kind of networking, was around stop having entrepreneurial conversations with people who aren't entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Stop having work conversations. If you said to my best friend, who I have been best friends with this woman since we were 4 years old, I am an aunt to her kids. I am godparent. I am that person. I am the, like, she accidentally killed someone and I'm going to help bury the body person. She
Mm-hmm.
could tell you nothing about my job. She'll tell you elements. She travels a lot. She does speaking stuff. She doesn't care. And it's
Mm.
not that she doesn't care or support it. It's just she doesn't get it. And I'm
Yeah.
not expecting her to. And me expecting her to is such a detriment to her and my relationship, because
Mm-hmm.
this is so important to me, but also I have to be more than just my job also,
Mm.
because, this will one day all go away and it has to be something else. But this network of people around me, like, you should have people that don't care about it. And I shouldn't be talking to her about, I'm thinking about running some Facebook marketing ads. I've never done it before. Maybe like she's going to look at me and go like, yeah, I asked you what you want for dinner. I don't care about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I only have entrepreneur conversations with entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And that extends to your partner as well, right? Like it can be
Yeah.
easy for people to go,
Yeah.
oh, my partner, I share everything with my partner and they support me. And it's like, if they're not entrepreneurial, they're not going to give you good advice and they're not going to get it. They might not even be interested. And you can't take that personally. It's just like, you've got to find the people that's have those conversations. Yeah.
100% agree. 100%.
Yeah. Okay, good. I love that. All right. So yeah, definitely a challenge I think that everyone can relate to, and a really important part, because sometimes it can feel like, when you move into this space of having your own business and changing the way you think, that you have to leave people behind, because sometimes I'm like you, I've got a couple of really good close friends that I've had since, school, but there's a whole lot of people that I don't spend as much time with now. But you have to really literally get into that space of going, who am I going to bring in? Yeah.
And I think that it's not about cutting people off, but you are going to have to make some choices. This
Yeah.
isn't about burning every relationship to the ground. But if you're even listening to this podcast, if you're looking at entrepreneurship, you are here to make a bigger impact.
Yes.
There are some people who are very happy with 9 to 5.
Yeah.
That like some of my friends love the fact they start at night, work at 9 o'clock. They walk to work on the same route. They go to work all day.
Yeah.
They largely have the same lunch on Friday. They get like an order in thing from Uber Eats. They'll go home, and on Saturday they'll have dinner with their parents. On Sunday they'll have a day off, and they do the whole thing. And 4 days a week they go to the gym. That's my definition of hell, I'm pretty sure. But those people love it and thrive under those conditions. We are all unique little creatures who are running around all trying different stuff and trying to make what works.
Yeah.
If you're even thinking about this route, that's not for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you
absolutely.
probably already know that. This isn't going to be shocking news. It might be an acknowledgement of, oh, but that is the dream we were sold. That was the only dream that was sold. So therefore, I think most people are complacent that that's the only thing I can do.
Yeah. I was talking to a coach friend the other day, and I said, one of the things I know for myself is that I have a high desire for variety.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do that 9 to 5 Monday to Friday thing. Like, it's just not, it doesn't work. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good.
That is my definition of hell, in lack of a better word. Absolute definition of hell.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks for sharing that, Jemimah. Like I said, I think that's something everyone can relate to. And I would love to know, like, what do you think, if we bring this back to visibility in your area of expertise, what do you think are the key things that, someone who's, starting their business or new in business or whatever else, that they really need to know about being more visible, that could really help them make a, real turning point or business changing kind of decision?
You need to, whatever you're doing and wherever you are in the journey, go back to the foundational stuff. So I've talked about personal brand a little bit earlier. This is important. Familiarity is exactly what we need to bring here. We need to have every person should know your name. It should be recognizable. It shouldn't feel jarring. It shouldn't feel like I have to learn who this person is. We have to educate our clients over time. So the first thing is getting really clear on your personal brand. This includes things like color, font, language that you're happy to use, what clothing you're turning up in, what outfits you would wear to a networking group. And social media, you have to brand appropriately with that. Same colors, same fonts, same logo, same signature logo. I've had the same colors and same fonts for 5 years. And when I want to add something else, I just slowly integrate and make it change. And I follow people. I had created such a good personal brand, and I started my business journey while I was living in Canberra. I'm in Melbourne now, but I lived in Canberra during the time. There was a candidate who ran for the Liberal Party, and they used the same color, and people rang me and were like, congrats on running for Parliament, so good. I'm like, what the hell are you people all talking about? I used the exact same hex color that I had books, social media, everything. This is the thing with this kind of stuff, for social media wise, we have to get really clear and promoting your stuff every day. We have to build familiarity. We have to have branded stuff. Now, I'm not saying spend 5 hours and get a degree in Canva. You don't need to do that. But for $100, you can get some really good tiles made on Fiverr. My guy does like 100 tiles in like for $200. It's nothing for all of our clients, right? We have a graphic designer we work with there. The next thing is media and PR. Understand how easy it is when you have that foundational, when people can look at your social media and go, I know who she is, who she stands for, what he's doing, what that company does. When you're clear about it, when you know what problem you solve, when that's the only thing you're talking about, immediate go to your profile, they get it. But if you're jumping and changing and be like, here's a photo of my kid, here's a photo of the new plant, here I am over at Crystal Cave, here I am at the beach, like that's a really good wellness influencer kind of thing, but business wise, not helpful. So you can have parts of that, but you have to be really clear. Social media strategy is really important here. But when it comes to media, the first thing they're going to do is socials.
Yeah.
About how many followers, who are you talking to, what are you talking about? Now, let's give you some actual tips. Source Bottle, SOURCE Bottle, one of the greatest sites in the world. It is completely free unless you get an expert profile. With this whole idea that journalists can post looking for sources, it's called Source, looking for sources to talk about different media things. So that can include Facebook, I've seen Channel 7, I've seen The Project, Mamma Mia, Qantas Magazine, The Age, Joe Blogg's blog. Everyone can use this, and it is completely free. It's a resource that you can go and look at right now. This is also what you're about to know what you're talking about, because you can get very lost talking about everything.
Yeah. Oh, that's Source Bottle. Okay, great. I'm going to check that one out myself.
It's really great. There's another one too. If you're looking at having more of an American or UK area, go and check out Haro, Haro. It stands for Help a Reporter Out. And that mailing list though is a bit of a dog's breakfast. So buckle in because it's all over the place. It is like there is Forbes in there. There is really great magazines, but you can't tell who they are most of the time.
Okay, good. So, all right. So that's just getting in the media, getting in front, because that, that is something that comes up for people sometimes. And they think, oh, okay, I've got a story, or I want to go to the media, but how do I actually get there?
Yeah, exactly. So that's one way of getting there. The next one is just contacting places that would care about your story. So for women who are running women's story, who have lifestyle stories, who are interested in personal development, contacting Mamma Mia directly on their website and saying, I've got this interesting story, what do you think, is not a bad way of getting a story pitched. I think people don't realize that if you want to be featured somewhere, or even on a podcast of somebody, contact them, reach out, say hello.
Yeah.
Very easy way of getting seen and featured very quickly.
And I think as well, doing that right with the attitude of how can I help these people? Like, what is it that I'm going to provide that's going to add value to them or their readership or their audience?
For sure.
For
sure. We had a lot of people who reached out to me when, I've had podcasts in the past, and they've reached out and they're like, oh, can you interview me? I'm so good. And I kept always coming back with this idea, and this is where it really formulated for me about, what I'm giving you the platform. What are you giving to my people? Because I get protective over my people, right? Very protective over them. What are you adding to this situation? Why would I give you a platform? What are you going to do that's better?
Yeah, absolutely. And it all comes down to relationship building, right? That's the thing. People often say to me, oh, Tony, how did you build your business? And it literally always comes back to the relationships that I built with people at different stages of my business. Yeah.
And I think people underestimate that so much. You would see this all the time too, that people underestimate the relationship that you built a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago can come back in really beautiful ways. I had a listener of a podcast who's now a client of mine and paying me, $700 a month, who was a listener of a podcast back in 2016. They signed a year ago. That's a long time to watch somebody. Yeah. It's a very long time, but this is what happens when you are in this environment. You get known, you get built, and people raise their hand when they're ready. And it's not always when you think it's going to be. There's a sense of urgency that a lot of people bring in coach-wise. They're like, I have to get all the clients. And, this takes time. This is a summer activity again and again and again. And that's all that visibility is. You don't get to skip to the end. I keep telling clients when they're like, oh, I want to do lots of media. And I was like, well, great. I love that you want to be in Forbes, but you're going to have to do terrible blogs to begin with. You are going to have to interview in podcasts when nobody knows your name. You are going to have to eat some words at the moment and just get, because 1 at the moment for you is greater than 0. You don't get to skip to the end. And none of this is accidental.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that is the thing. It's just a matter of saying yes a lot sometimes, isn't it? When you get started, it's just like, yes, I will do that and I'll share it so people can see that I'm actually out there doing stuff and see where it goes from there. And I think, that long game, another interview I just did, the last one, actually, we were talking about the long game in business, and just like what you said there, I've worked with people who I went to school with, who I worked with previously, who have followed me, and people are always watching, even if they're not liking or commenting or whatever on your stuff, they're watching. Yeah.
If you want to see the difference between this, go and put a post up. Just go and put, if you really want to see this in action in very practical ways, go and put a post up. Just go and put, Tony and I on a call. Yeah, we take a little photo, we post that, and see how many people like or engage with that. Run the exact same picture on your stories and watch how many people are truly seeing it. It is unnerving. You will have about, on average for people, about a 20% engagement rate. So if 20 people are liking it, 100 people saw it. This is what's really important about this, because people are watching. You posting every day matters. for real reason. It's this sum of activity. You are not going to annoy anyone. And even if you do and they unfriend you, so be it. They were never going to buy from you anyway. Let them go.
Yeah, I often say that. I can't remember where I heard it, but it's like, do you think like Nike or Coca-Cola care if anyone thinks that they're there too often?
Yeah. Are you okay? You bought 2 Coca-Colas this day. You all right? Is everything all right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fabulous. Oh, so that's some real gold there. Is there anything else that you've got to share, Jemimah, that in this whole visibility thing that you think is, key?
Yeah, so kind of the key things that we're kind of already covered off on the personal brand. We've got building the high level network, getting on social media, getting media pictures. The final thing, sort of the fifth thing and the absolute key thing I want everyone to look at is awards. I cannot stress to you how important awards and award applications truly are. Awards are absolutely pivotal if you're trying to build your business. I just listen to so many people just go, oh, no, can't do that. Can't do that. Got like real tight butt, can't do it. Really nervous, can't do it. The great thing is that every business category has a category called new business, which is for businesses in the first 12 months. Almost every business award runs these, which means you can be 3, 6, or 9 months or 12 months old and still apply for them, and it still be valid and still warranted. Whatever you were thinking, you were ready.
Yeah. I think that's such a great point, Jemimah, because if you're a person who has enough courage and thought and, wants to solve some kind of a problem, because that's essentially what a business is, and you're willing to take that step and put yourself out there and do it, absolutely you deserve to get nominated for an award.
For sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I think, and it's really jarring to me when people say things like, oh, no, I wouldn't win. It's not about the prize at the end. This has to have an element of, you can just enjoy the journey of this one. You can just enjoy that it is a really fun process, and then it could be a little bit difficult, but it could be great, or it could be a finalist, or I could be a winner, or I could go to an awards night. This whole process is designed, one, as an audit. How are you doing? What are you ignoring? What have you overthought? What have you underthought about? Example, sustainability. How much stuff are you doing with charity? Huge questions you always get asked about. But if you aren't building something, and maybe you could make yourself a better business, put yourself in the more philanthropy kind of area, these things over time are important. It's a great way to audit your business, see what's happening, gauge how you're truly doing.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting thing that I've found, Jemimah, over the years I've been, nominated and been finalist and, won a couple of awards and things like that. And one of the things that I've found really interesting is how much people love getting behind me when like they're cheering for me, right? Like if I share, oh, I've been nominated, or I'm a finalist, or I've won this award. Like, it's like other people enjoy that. Like, it's really incredible feeling. Like people are just like, oh, good on you, because I've been watching you and it's well deserved, and they just really love it. So I think even from that space, it's not even a selfish thing. Like people that want to see you succeed.
Of course they do, and in exactly the same breath, pay attention to those who don't clap when you're winning. Like there are people who also and just gauge, I'm not saying get vindictive or slash anyone's tires. That was a joke. Don't do that. But the point here is make sure, just watch how people are reacting to this, the same coin. Because again, right people, I've certainly had a lot of people that looked like they were cheering, but absolutely weren't. Example, did a book launch. One of what I would refer to as my work husband. He didn't buy a book. He didn't really ever say congratulations when stuff happened. He'd also be very quick to tell you how great he was going. And there was never when things were like, oh, that's bad for you, but listen, what's happening to me. And I was like, oh, I'm a mirror for you. You have no interest in what's happening with me. And I stopped calling, and guess what happened? That relationship ended. So you have to remember, watch who's who's applauding, and watch who's not. Because those people are either your tribe, or get rid of them now. They are not going to help you in the future. And remember that a true friend and a true circle will go, I think you're fucking something up now. Let's talk. Like, the true person's like, listen, Tony, I love this podcast, but we need to talk about that last bit. I'm not sure about, you know what I mean? Like she should be able to come in and help you and course correct and
give
tweak.
some kind of constructive feedback. Yeah. And I think that's a really important thing, Jemimah, because I haven't come across it a lot, but definitely there's, you know, probably one or two people across the time where I think, you know, and I think what this really comes down to is when you've had a relationship with people and they see how you fit in their model of the world, when you shift outside of that, like you said, it's a bit of a mirror. They can only reflect on themselves and go, well, where am I really at now? Like if you know, because I thought where I was at was okay because you were at that with me. Now you're over here and I'm like, am I still okay with where I am? But most people don't have that awareness and they just project it.
Yeah, and it's totally fine when people do that, but be aware of it. Like that's their journey, not yours. Don't carry that. Like really important. And it is one of those things, and it's hard to explain to people when they start this journey. Relationships will end, friendships will end, and because you are forcing people, when you start something like this, you are forcing people to look at their own life.
Yes. What they think is reality is suddenly shifted a bit. Yeah.
Well, and also like this is what we do, Tony. We eat pizza every night and we watch on Wednesday and we watch Criminal Minds. What do you mean we're not doing that anymore? And you're like, well, it's not.
What do you mean you don't want to go clubbing till like sunrise anymore?
Yeah, and you're like, oh, what do you mean? I want to do stuff on Sunday. Yeah, vomit and do what everyone else does. And we have super hungover and we'll get McDonald's for dinner. No.
Yeah.
You know, this stuff has a lifespan. And when you go, you know, and I think this is a thing that's not discussed enough. I think about adult relationships ending and friendships ending. That, you know, I think I think of relationships as a bit of a circle, like we all do a lap together. And then it gets to a point where we commit or, you know, commit or not. And we can do another lap again and we get to decide. And sometimes you just get off. You're like, this circle, I'm done with this ride. I want to go and try this ride. The teacups has been brilliant, but I want to do a roller coaster for a bit, or vice versa. I want to have some stability for a bit.
Yeah. And I think, you know, the interesting thing, this kind of conversation always reminds me when my daughter finished primary school, like she'd been like the queen of the primary school kind of thing, you know, like year 7, like I know what's going on and kind of owning it. And then it's like, well, now we're going to step into high school. And she was just like, I don't want to do that.
You're like, well, honey, you're not going to get a choice on this one.
Yeah. And, but I was like, just imagine if you for the rest of your life had the exact same friends that you had in primary school, wouldn't that be boring? And she said, no, that would be
oh, honey, oh, sweetheart.
But you know, she was a primary school child, right? And she's since grown on and she's about to move off to Queensland and make a whole new group of friends and stuff, which is very exciting. But but I think it's a natural progression of life, right? Is that you will move on and meet new people and have new experiences. And I think business is just one of those things that kind of you know, sometimes can just speed that up or make it a little bit more obvious.
For sure. And I think that that's something that we probably don't acknowledge enough, especially in this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've really loved those tips, Jemimah. So, and we've talked a bit about, you know, the challenges in business, but like, what would you say? What is the absolute highlight? What is it that you really love that keeps you doing this business thing through all the challenges and everything else? What is the real highlight for you?
Such a good question. It sounds really corny, but I think there's something really magic when I get to stand on stage and present and tell a story and I watch people change or pivot or change something in their business. That's really life-changing for me. I think there's something really powerful when I see my name in magazines and I'm doing stuff like, oh, I'm in the project this week or Sunrise Calls, and I get to see that kind of real validation, and particularly when I'm pitching other clients. But ultimately, I think it comes down to making impact on businesses who deserved always to be seen. I think there's a lot of people who don't take the voice for it, who don't want to claim their space as their own. And that can become very, very jarring, I think, for me, because I'm like, well, but you're great. Like, everyone should know your name. People are like, no one should know who I am. Not interested. And you're like, no, but really, it's going to be great. So yeah, it's interesting. I think watching people claim their own stake is really important to me. Like, that's the thing that lights me up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really get that, because that's the thing that drives me, right? Is like, I love helping people who help people, because I know I can never help as many people myself one-to-one as if I can help other people help their people, right? It's just that kind of ripple effect. And I think, it's almost like you kind of, like for me, I feel like, who am I not to be helping people?
Yeah, and I think this is something that we don't talk about. Like, who are you not to help? If you have the solution to the problem, you should be helping every way possible.
Yeah. I love that. Amazing. Well, Jemimah, I feel like, we could keep talking for a long time, because there's so much to this content. And, you are a real expert in your field, and you've had a wealth of experiences and knowledge and wisdom. And, but I know that you share that in other ways as well. So, what is the best way? Because I know you've got the Visibility Lab, which is your program where you help people get more visible. But what is the best way that people can kind of get around you, or, get in contact with you?
Yeah, easiest way is on all of the socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all of the stuff. Email is also really good. I'm sure we'll have that in the show notes, but hello@jemimahashleigh.com will get to me. And also, just reach out, like ask for tips, go get free downloadables. There's tons of stuff you guys can go and get, free awards list, free media tips, free videos. Go and grab them, because they're all there.
Yeah, fabulous. I definitely will have all of that in the show notes, because you've got a whole resources page, haven't you, on your website?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. And like, one final question, Jemimah, I always love to ask people, because, I know in this business kind of thing that it can become your whole life sometimes. And I know you were talking about having friends outside of that, which is really cool. But what do you actually do for fun?
Sorry, fun? What's that kidding? So I have a very, very strong social group, and I'm very lucky for that. And none of them are in entrepreneurship, so that's really important. But my favorite thing is to travel. So I do a lot of travel for work anyway. Tony, I often get to see you in Adelaide, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But outside of that, going to do other things, theatre shows, go to comedy stuff, go to improv. I spent yesterday, it was a Sunday here in Melbourne yesterday, and I spent the day just getting lost in streets, going to art galleries, trying little, just having that thing that isn't work-based, and just exploring, like honestly, just getting lost in any city that I'm in. It's really fun. And the great thing is Uber can pick you up from anywhere and get you back to where you need to go to. No matter how lost you get.
I love that. I think, is that like a thing when you're interested in presenting? Because I'm really, I love comedy. I grew up with my mum playing Billy Connolly like records, vinyl.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, great.
But I just love the way that they present, and that they storytell and all those kinds of things, and they reframe things, and the improv. So, and art and all those kinds of things. I love that as well. See, we've got more in common than we probably even know, Jemimah.
Yeah, I've been an improv teacher for about 10 years. I love it. It's one of my
favorite.
You're
an improv teacher?
Yeah, I do it. I've done it for years. I love it. I think it's one of the funnest things in the world.
Oh my God, there's something else I've got to pick your brain about at another time.
We'll do some classes in Adelaide, at least.
Yeah. Fabulous. Well, Jemimah Ashleigh, thank you so much for coming on and being a guest on the Coaching Circle. I know there's so much gold in here. I'll be having a re-listen and taking some notes myself. And
call anytime.
Yeah. And thank you again. It's been amazing.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.